Hi everyone, welcome back to Project No Buy. In today's video, we're going to be talking about that mentality of we deserve it. So this is kind of an enabling mentality in a way, and enabling to shop and enabling to buy and enabling to desire and to want things and to justify sometimes getting the things that we want. We're told that we deserve it. You deserve it. You work so hard. You're so stressed. You need some relief from the toils of life, and just a little pick-me-up purchase won't hurt, and in fact, you deserve it. But I guess the thing is that I've been feeling when I come up against these messages, this messaging, is that to say that somebody deserves something without acknowledging that everybody deserves it is to suggest that some humans are more valuable and deserving than others. And I'm just not okay with that. I also just don't even think it's the case. I don't believe it at all. I can't think of an argument that I currently believe that would justify the life of one human over another. And I know to some extent that this is applicable to all life, animals included, but for the purpose of this video, I'm just keeping it focused on human value and the narratives that humans receive when we are told that we deserve to treat ourselves. And also, there's a wealth of vegan creators on this platform that do a much better job of communicating that message than I would do today. So yeah, age, gender, abilities or not, there's no human life that's more valuable and deserving of whatever it is than another. No human life deserves more comfort and security than another. Even arguably bad people who do bad things. Would they be doing the bad things if they had the same foundation of stability and comfort as another person? There are all sorts of reasons for people's actions, and people's circumstances play a big part in that. We have a lot of research that tells us this. And okay, if people have demonstrated that they are a legitimate danger to others in society, it kind of doesn't matter what circumstances that they are dealing with, they will have to be removed from society. And, it's not a perfect solution or perfect system. But again, we're not really going to be dealing with those more extreme cases in this topic of the day. So bringing it back to narratives of consumerism, how many ads have we seen with some kind of message of you deserve it for whatever reason? And I guess to that I say, we do deserve it. We do deserve it as humans. We deserve a lot of things. We deserve mental peace and financial stability and relative comfort and shelter and food and clothing for our needs. We also deserve things like contentment and some degree of fulfillment and happiness, things that cannot be attained by spending our money on material stuff. On the flip side, nobody actually deserves that shiny new thing, that molded piece of plastic, or that cut and sewn bit of fabric, or that shiny painted metal that makes noise when you push certain buttons. Whatever it is, nobody inherently deserves material things. Everyone deserves it, and no one deserves it. Both of these things are true. And the crux of the matter for me is that no one human is more deserving than another in terms of the things that humans inherently need, and even in terms of the things that humans inherently want. We all actually have to do hard things in order to exist as a human. I think there are some philosophies based on this about how to be born is to suffer, to exist is to suffer. And so we are all in the same boat. We are all in the same ship here, rowing along, and to be bombarded with these messages from advertising about you deserve it. If you buy this, you'll be treating yourself, and not everybody can have this luxury. It's not, there's some level of exclusivity to those people who choose to make the purchase and choose to indulge. I think it's just mixing up all of our values in human society. It's not good. I tend to refrain from making these kind of value statements on here, but I can't help it this time, right? I just don't like it. I don't think it's good. I don't think it's moving us forward as humans in society. And I just think it's convoluting a lot of things, right? I was watching this debate, listening to this debate in the car. It was a YouTube video. I will try to have it linked on the list of videos that inspire me so that you can see it here. But I think the subject was about whether we can be good, humans can be good without God. So a theist versus an atheist debating. And one of the opening statements was taken from, I think it's the Declaration of Independence. This is terrible because I, as an American, should know these things, right? But it was the quote from Jefferson where it's talking about how we hold these truths to be self-evident that, I'm gonna look this up because otherwise this could be really embarrassing. Okay, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that to secure these rights governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. So anyway, getting away from perhaps the government side of things, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. And again, using men as a placeholder for humans, right? Let's just say that that's how it is, and that it's not an issue of race or gender or anything like that. The debate between the theist and the atheist was focusing on how, well, the theist opened with a statement and said that we hold these truths to be self-evident was not the original wording. Apparently, Jefferson originally said we hold these truths to be sacred and undeniable, that all men are created equal and so forth. But apparently Benjamin Franklin told Jefferson or recommended that he change that wording so that the foundational document was not based on religion, or seemed to be based on religion. And the theist was arguing that these truths are demonstrated to not be self-evident in our human culture, right? So humans don't see that we all have an equal value without the presence of God, without Christianity, basically. And I'm not here to speak about which side of that argument I agree with or disagree with, or really talk about that. But the thing that really stuck out to me as interesting is that these truths should be self-evident. And I don't know that it actually matters whether we do or don't have religion. I don't think it's essential to view these truths as self-evident. And I guess in that way, I kind of am divulging what I think about that debate in terms of, I do think it's possible for humans to be good or to have moral good without the presence of God. I do think there are some human foundations, the golden rule for one, I guess, treating others how you would wish to be treated, treating others how they wish to be treated even, taking it a step further, and communicating with our fellow mankind and using that as perhaps the basis, assuming empathy, perhaps, as well. And, I guess I just don't think religion can be great. It can be helpful. It can be a presence. It can be a facet in somebody's individual moral compass, for sure. But I guess my personal stance is that it's just not necessary. And therefore, all of the marketing messaging, it's not through our own doing that it is not self-evident that we have these equal rights, I guess is where I'm trying to go here. It's not innate to humans. It would be self-evident if we as a culture didn't go about dismantling the self-evident quality of this truth, of our equality, of our rights to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, and no one person having more of those rights than another. And again, this is not supposed to be specific to America either. I think this is true for all of humanity, no matter where one is situated or into what circumstances one is born. And so to be constantly hearing and exposed to these messages of, you deserve it. If you buy this, you'll be this, or you'll be better, or you'll have more self-care, or you treat yourself, and all of that. I just think it is a disservice to humankind. And, I might be climbing up on a high horse on a soapbox here, with this video. But I guess it sometimes has to be done, right? But I will reiterate that even as I climb onto the high horse, onto the soapbox, that I am not a perfect example of never falling for this messaging of, you deserve it, so therefore buy it. Or if you buy this, you're treating yourself. Or maybe you even deserve this more than somebody else does because you work hard, or whatever. The kind of underlying text for the marketing we see. Even if it's not as blatant as all of that, right? Like, I do think that is kind of the messaging that is embedded into even influencer content a lot of the time. So there might come a time where I unpack this further and provide examples of these kind of hidden underlying messages, but I'm not certain that I'm comfortable spotlighting this in others' creations, whereas you can probably find examples of this in your everyday life and in the marketing you've personally seen. So again, feel free to share some examples of this narrative that you've seen down below. In fact, I have seen recently, there's a shampoo commercial, and again, it's kind of facetious. And I think the celebrity in question is saying something about how everyone deserves a better bang, and therefore you need to buy this shampoo. And even with the message of everyone deserves this, the outcome is that you will get it if you buy this product. And again, while I appreciate the non-exclusivity of everyone deserving it, it's still got that underlying message of those who buy this will get it. And okay, the commercial is a joke, and I'm taking it way too seriously, and I suck the fun out of life and all that, with all my overthinking analyses of these things. But I do wonder what the world would look like, what people would feel like, what the level of happiness and insecurities and financial financial stabilities and compulsive behaviors, not just shopping, but just, impulse control in general, wanting, and general outlook on life. I do wonder what all of these things would look like if our advertising was nicer, was just more kind, or perhaps less personal, perhaps more matter of fact. This is something that exists, and sorry, my video memory card got full in the middle of that kind of thought. So I'm not exactly sure where I was, but I think I was talking about how advertising could be different, and I wonder what the world would look like if it were. I also don't have a perfect answer, right? I don't know how advertising should change, or even how something like influencing could be done and maintain the most integrity possible. So as always, I would love to hear your thoughts down below. I would love to learn from you in this community and hear more of your ideas and your takes, hear more outside opinions on this one. Is anybody else bothered by these messages of deserving things, of treating yourself, of companies trying to cultivate this message, cultivate this idea that through buying their products, you get what you deserve, and that there's some element of joining this exclusive club of people who have purchased this type of product. And I guess to share one more kind of personal aspect of this is that I do sometimes still find myself struggling with the treat yourself mentality. And when I think of my latest no-buy infringements in January, I was thinking about whether it's more about wanting the actual stuff or whether it's kind of the emotional support ritual or buying into those narratives of I deserve it and I should treat myself. I was thinking, for example, when my kids want something that they want but don't truly need, how there's varying degrees of how easy it is to say no or to explain why we shouldn't and aren't going to buy that thing. In most circumstances, it's fairly easy to say no and to explain why. And extrapolating to myself, there are many circumstances now, after the work of the No Buy 2024 especially, that it's easy to say no to myself and not buy the thing too. However, thinking about when I buy things for myself, the birthdays, the really bad day, or the really triggering circumstances of, not being well rested, having high stress, confronting some perhaps dental anxiety, newfound woes in that regard. Those are also circumstances that I would find it hard to say no to anybody else, kids or otherwise. So this tells me that there are still kind of narratives at large, general narratives to unlearn here. If I thought about my friends buying something excessive for their birthday or because they learned they just need a root canal, I would be totally on board with that. I wouldn't see anything wrong with it, and I would totally empathize with that desire and follow through of buying something. I think the kids example is kind of powerful though, because with things that are kids, especially if you have small children at home, that the things you buy them are often things that you will end up maintaining, even though they're not your things. And so when you have to say yes or no, the things that you say yes to are really things that are going to make a positive difference in their lives and by extension in your life too. Kid stuff is still my money and my maintenance, in other words. So while I do think that despite these bombarding messages of desire and deserve it and treat yourself from social media and ads and other sources of influence, I do think I've gotten a lot better at fielding those when it's from exterior sources like this. However, when it's internal sources of triggering or motivation or messaging, kind of bubbling up within myself, whether it's the anxiety or the stress or the birthday occasions where my own narratives tell myself to treat myself, I think those are the circumstances that are still the final frontier for me to do some more unlearning in. And whether it's through the lens of I don't deserve it or I do deserve it and everybody deserves it, but that would not be the realistic way to approach things. If everybody overshopped every birthday they had or everybody treated every kind of moment of anxiety as a possibility for purchase, the world would not be in a great place. And it does feel like we're kind of heading that way regardless of what my personal journey is reflecting here. And, you know, the reason I'm sharing my personal journey here is in the hopes that more of us will get on this train and take this kind of personal accountability, I guess. And again, I don't want to say this in an accusatory way, or that other people should do this, or that it's, you know, it's not coming from a place of superiority, you know, from me at least. But personally, I do want to step away from consumerism tied to any of these instances, no matter what the marketing is doing to try to keep me tied to that consumerism. And so I got to thinking about my personal circumstances and also the alternatives and initial resistance that I feel. And a lot is to do with relying on other people or burdening them. And so I can either address this by seeking that support in a reasonable way, and possibly learning to ride that emotional roller coaster with more stability and grace myself, you know, even if it's alone. For example, you know, again, going back to the dental anxiety, my husband only has a certain amount of bandwidth to listen to me worry about my teeth when we can't actually do anything about it. There's no active issues, I just suspect some issues, and we have a dental appointment coming up. So it's not that my worries are completely unfounded and unempathizable, I guess, you know, not a word, but, you know, undeserving of empathy. It's not that my dental woes are undeserving of empathy, but it is also fair to not expect somebody else to listen to them constantly, even though they are going constantly in my own mind sometimes. And so I can either find additional sources of support to kind of lessen the load, but ideally, I guess my ultimate solution would be to be able to quell those voices of anxiety in my own mind and find an internal solution for myself that doesn't involve consumerism. Likewise, with the special occasions and birthdays, they really don't need to be so stuff-focused. I don't even think that my parents set me up to be like that growing up with excessive gifts or anything like that. If anything, it could be the opposite, where the inability to acquire what I wanted as a child has now propelled me into over-acquiring what I want as an adult. But I think that's a fairly normal circumstance where, as children, we're not totally in control of our finances or the stuff we have. And so I think if that's the case for me, it's probably the case for many people, where some of our adult overconsumerism is a result of not having that control when we were younger. I do actually wonder now if it was something to do with attention and feeling like I wasn't necessarily heard on special occasions especially, but perhaps a little bit in general as a child. And maybe that's what I'm kind of afraid of, as far as not getting the gift and attention as an adult now for occasions. Who knows? But anyway, I do want to get this figured out ASAP, because I want to structure the kind of family attitudes around gift-giving occasions in a much more healthy way, so that the people that I do have direct influence over can grow up with a more positive association and not be triggered into falling into consumerist behaviors based on at least the way they grew up. And maybe they can grow up with more tools to help themselves when they do hear all these messages, hear these kind of marketing narratives of you deserve it, and if you buy this, you'll be this, and your life will be better with all this stuff. You know, I want to provide the tools for the people I directly influence, as well as to those on here, those of you watching. So anyway, we all deserve it, and none of us deserve it. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that we all have the same value as humans, and we can navigate these different narratives that are thrown at us, we're bombarded with, as far as how many ads we see on a daily basis, and choose the appropriate times to treat yourself and do it all within budget and within reasonable, conscious consuming guidelines. All right, I'll leave you with that for today, and I'll say bye for now. See you in the next one.